Mariel Strode once said, "I will not follow where the path may lead, but I will go where there is no path, and I will leave a trail." We have the distinct honor of having a phenomenal panel of ladies who have a story to tell about their journey and how they are blazing new trails. We will begin with the following. We will have some comments by Angela Coleman. We will then have Miss Rita Height and then Miss Denise Merle. So we'll kick it off with Angela Coleman.
Hello, fellow women in forestry. I'm Angela Coleman, Associate Chief of the USDA Forest Service. We have the privilege of stewarding the nation's forests and grasslands. But we're also on a journey to transform our culture to treat everyone with respect and dignity. We're especially focusing on our workforce of more than 30,000 employees, where women and minorities have historically faced inequity. We have a long way to go, as do we all in this community. It's good to know we're not alone in our struggles and can help and learn from one another. At this defining moment for America's forests, while we face historic challenges and threats, we need opportunities like this Congress to come together, share leadership, exchange ideas, and inspire one another. My Forest Service career spans 30 years plus. I entered just as we were turning the corner to employ more professional women and minorities. My journey has taken me from national forests in the Southeast to the Pacific Southwest in California and on to Washington, D.C. Over the years, I've grown as a leader and I witnessed historic progress for women and minorities. 2 females became chief of the Forest Service. Last year, I had a front row seat as the first African-American man took his oath as chief of this agency. And I became the first African-American woman to serve as associate chief. But the thanks go to the so many who came before me. I benefited from these courageous men and women who fought for change. A month ago, I had a chance to visit with several of them at the retiree reunion in California, including our 2 former female chiefs, Gail Kimball and Vicki Christensen. I felt enormous pride and gratitude, but I also left with a staunch resolve to continue this work. And oh my, we have a lot of work to do. And the pandemic only added to it. The pandemic harshly hit the most vulnerable in our community: children, the elderly, rural residents, people of color, and women. A report from the Brookings Institute said the virus excelled at taking existing tensions and ratcheting them up. Millions of women who were already supporting families on meager wages before lost out. Mitigation lockdowns sent unemployment rates skyrocketing, and millions of jobs disappeared. Evidence shows working mothers bore the brunt of responsibilities and frequently reduced hours or just left their jobs. The Forest Service saw the same trends. Women struggled to balance work with care for family, and many left their jobs and advancement waned. We are beginning to recover thanks to our collective work, but it will take time, in some cases, a long time. But in the meantime, there are actions you and I can take right now, every day, to make a difference. We can strengthen our support for women in this community. Too many times we see each other as rivals and competitors instead of as friends and supporters. The best lesson I learned came from those champions who rallied to help me in my darkest time with the agency. I was 30, had rapidly risen to mid-level management, and a revered leader told me my career was over in the Forest Service and the chances for advancement were nil. I didn't fit the conventional model. I had no background in forestry or natural resource management, but I was blessed to have champions. They rallied to my side to restore me, help me see possibilities, and they personally intervened and broke down walls. We know today how that ended, and I call their work my AA program, allyship, affirmation, two powerful acts that can make a difference when you face adversity, and we all face adversity. Allyship means being a support, an ally to members of a mistreated group, one you usually don't belong to. I saw its power last summer for myself when one of my colleagues was fighting to improve pay and benefits for firefighters. Negotiations were long and tough, and it was creating impatience in our firefighting community. Firefighters took to Facebook with vile comments and personal insults directed at her. One sent an email directly to her that was particularly vile. She told me about it. So I asked her to join me for lunch. I told her that we trusted and supported her, that we had her back, and she could count on us. But I knew I had to do more than talk. I had to act. Needless to say, that firefighter no longer works for us. She needed an ally in word and deed. Secondly, we need affirmation, positive encouragement that confirms truth and experiences. A month ago, an African-American woman, a new employee in our agency, came to see me to share her experience with microaggression and isolation that others dismissed. I affirmed what she was seeing in our culture. The tears rolled. Sometimes we just need someone to believe us, to affirm our truth. It can be quite powerful. Whether it's 2 or 2,000, when we work as allies and affirm each other, we restore confidence. We unleash power that brings change. It gives us energy to get back in the ring, the confidence to express our voice, the resiliency to bounce back, the courage to act. When you think about the complex challenges we all face in forestry, our workforce, and our world, it's going to take all our voices and talents to seek the solutions we need. So as you work on the big challenges this week, let's spend time being allies and affirming each other to unlock the incredible power within each of us. Congratulations to the Women's Congress in Forestry.
Wow. I just have to say, and maybe I'm going to be the first one to cry on this stage, but probably not the last. That picture of Angela with those older white men was just so incredibly powerful. I was sitting up there just, man, I have goosebumps. It's amazing. So, wow, so excited to be with all of you here this morning. Excited to be on this stage with Denise, and thank you for the introduction, Mia. And just so happy to be with all of you. I was saying to some colleagues when I got off the elevator yesterday and I heard our voices, it just, my face lit up. I'm like, I'm home. This is amazing. So thank you all for being here. Thank you for the opportunity to just share a little bit about my journey. And the journey of the Women's Forest Congress, because 2.5 years, look how far we have come. 2.5 years, this was an idea of a few people at a conference sketched out on a napkin. And we're here, and we're supporting each other and creating community, and we're gonna lift each other up, and we're gonna do this. Those 8 resolutions, we're gonna effing do it, y'all, okay? I'm also the first person that swore on the stage, yes, all right. My team is like, oh, Rita, be careful. So a little bit about my journey. You know, I'm not gonna lie, 10 years ago, if someone had said to me, Rita, we need you to be part of a community that creates opportunities for women to develop in the forest sector and lift each other up, I would have said, that's cool, but I wouldn't have had the commitment and passion to the initiative like I do today. And so I was reflecting on that. I'm being honest. For those of you that know me, I'm gonna say it like I see it. So I'm gonna be a little vulnerable up here on the stage. Again, 10 years ago, I would have been like, yeah, that's cool. I didn't really see the barriers. I was, a few years out of school, maybe a little bit more than a few. And my classes in school, 50% women at least. We had women in our, we had fellowship in our classes. I was seeing that I had women colleagues. I had lots of women that I was working with. And frankly, I worked in Washington, D.C. for years. And I think we were like 90% women in the lobbying force, which is why we get stuff done in D.C. in the forestry community. So, I was looking around and I had incredible men that were also mentors. They were looking for opportunities for me. They were constantly finding ways for me to grow. So again, great to support women. I'm all for it, but I wasn't really seeing those barriers. And then something shifted for me about 4 or 5 years ago. Actually, about 4.5 years ago, I became a mom. I have a 4-year-old. He's incredible. I won't bore you with all the stories about how amazing he is. My team has heard me say this, but literally my 4-year-old comes home from school pretty much like once a day, maybe once every other day. Mommy, what are you doing to protect the planet? He goes, and I'm like, you listen to me, kid, right? And I give him this long lecture. And yeah, I'm sure the teachers don't appreciate that. But so, things shifted for me. I have a 4-year-old. I started advancing in terms of taking on additional leadership positions. And I was finding that the conditions did not exist for me to succeed. I wasn't working 180 hours a week anymore. We've all been there, and probably a lot of us still do, because we felt like we need to prove ourselves. Frankly, I grew up on a farm, and my dad always used to say, I have 2 older sisters, there's three of us girls, and my dad always used to say, I would much rather have girls than boys, because girls are harder workers, because we always feel like we need to prove ourselves. And that's been me for a while. And, I always just tried to go above and beyond, because I felt like I needed to prove myself. I felt like I needed to be, better than the rest. A couple other things. I had people starting to question. Again, I'm a leader in an organization. I've been in the sector for 20 years. And people starting to question, Rita, you're a mom. Do you really think you should take on that leadership role? Really? Do you really think you're going to have the time? Now, did they ask my husband that question? Never, right? Did my husband once get that question when we had our child? Heck no, right? But I was starting to get those kinds of questions, and it was starting to give me this doubt around, like, should I really be here? Should I really be here? And then we had that thing called COVID that kicked us on our butts, right? Oh my goodness gracious. Every single one of us in this room has gone through so much with COVID. And, I was actually joking in the ladies' room with a colleague. Everyone's like, oh, we love seeing your son. Well, I didn't. Let me just say, I'm just going to say it. I didn't. No. So just so many things shifting for me as an individual, for us as a community. And so come along these amazing women in the steering committee of the Women's Forest Congress. Again, critical moment for our sector, but being selfish, it was a critical moment for me. We set out to change these conditions. We are all here to change these conditions, to create an environment where it's okay to cry on stage, to create an environment where it's okay for your 4-year-old to be in the back. It's to create an environment where it's okay for us to live our truth. With the Women's Forest Congress Steering Committee, a number of folks came to me and said, Rita, do you want to be part of this? And there were a few F-bombs dropped, because I was like, hell yeah, sign me up, whatever we do here, right? And I finally had a group of women that, were saying, Rita, it's not okay for someone to challenge your abilities because you're a mom. It's okay for you to be yourself in your leadership role. It's okay for you to express your views. It's okay for you to cry. It's okay for you to be vulnerable. That was incredibly powerful for me at a critical moment in my life, where I was contemplating. I'd been at the American Forest Foundation for a while, and I was contemplating, can I really do this? Can I really grow into a leadership role? And so all of that has helped me on my journey. The Women's Force Congress, the steering committee, we weekly would just get together. And a lot of times, yes, we were focused on actions, but a lot of times it was really just about, let's support each other. What's going on in your world? Let me listen and be there. And I'm hoping that we can create that same kind of movement in this room and outside that room, because it was so important for me on my journey over the last couple of years. And sure, I've got a great title. I'm just going to say it. Chief Executive Officer, ooh, right? First woman to lead the American Forest Foundation. So I'm like, yeah, you know, I'm here, right? Like, okay, I'm here. I don't have to keep questioning myself and questioning whether or not I should be here. But I do every day, y'all. I do every day. One of the, and I'm constantly doing things to adapt and change and figure out, how do I get out of my own head, right? How do I get out of my head and say, I'm actually here for a reason? And I have to, because if I'm gonna be the leader this organization needs, if I'm gonna be a leader in the forest sector to help drive the change we need, I have to get out of my head. I'll tell you a little story about just one little thing I've done to get out of my head. So I took on this role in January, and it literally took me 3.5 months to really even step foot in the CEO office, right? I had an office, I'd been at AFF for a while. It took me a long time. And I would go into the office and I'd be like, all right, I'm gonna put my stuff in here, I'm gonna be ready. And I just kept sitting there and thinking, I feel like a little girl in a man's chair. What is going on here, Rita? Like, you gotta get out of your head, you gotta figure this out. So our staff will probably laugh hysterically about the story I'm gonna tell, but so I was like, I gotta do something. I gotta do something to change this. And it's not, yes, it's about a physical presence, but it's about the mindset. So I consulted with our team around our brand and our colors and all of that, and decided I'm gonna paint my walls pink. Right? This office, it's very staid wood paneling, you know, white walls, just kind of cold. And I was like, you know what? It's gonna be pink. And I painted my walls pink, and it was so freeing, y'all. It was so freeing because, first of all, we all are on Zoom hell every other day, right? And I'd be in my office, and women and people of color would be like, Rita, did you paint your wall pink? That's effing awesome. I know exactly why you did that. It's because that makes you feel like yourself. And what's been great too is I'll get men, usually older men, and they'll get on a Zoom call with me. Rita, is that wall pink? And I've learned, I started at first to like explain myself, and then I've learned to just, yes, and just let it sink in. And you can see the wheels churning in people's heads. They're like, I get it. I get it. That is amazing. So that's one of the little things I've done to kind of help me get out of my head and just help me really feel like I'm in my shoes. I'm not gonna lie, there's a lot of Wilson Phillips that gets played on my headset before I do board meetings and all of that stuff. I have a few secrets like that too. So again, I'm super excited to be here because of the fact that we're going to create a movement. We're going to create a movement that's going to lift women up, and we're going to create a movement that's going to support each other and help us get out of our heads, right? I'm also here because, for me, the other thing I'm passionate about is climate change. The world cannot wait any longer for climate solutions. We are literally burning up, right? We all see this every day. We all see the changes in our forests. We see it real time. The world can't wait. And what's awesome, you know, a lot of people, I've talked with a lot of people about climate change, and actually I was with a landowner last week, and he was telling the story about talking with kids on his farm, and he started to talk about climate change, and this little girl just froze. He mentioned the word climate change, and she froze. And the landowner asked the mom, can I understand what's going on? And this little girl, she was, I think he said maybe she was 10. She is just so anxious about climate change, so anxious about what's happening in our world that she can't even talk about it. Like, oh my God. What I love about what we all do is we're hope. We are hope. for the issue of climate change. We're hope because forestry and forest products offer one of the most critical solutions in the race to address climate change. So that gives me incredible optimism for our sector, for the work that we all do. But we're only going to fulfill that mission. We're only going to fulfill that need that the world is relying on us for if we bring all people to the table. I loved how Jackie talked about it yesterday. We only have 50% of the solution at the table right now. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous when we're trying to tackle the largest environmental, social, and economic disaster of our multiple generations, right? It's ridiculous. We've got to figure this out. And for the landowners and kind of forest sector we work with at the American Forest Foundation, about 40% of our forests in the US are owned by families and individuals. AFF works with families and individuals. And one of the things that we're pursuing as an organization is we've got to unlock the power of family lands in the race to mitigate climate change. We have to figure out a way to help family landowners be part of this, not only for the climate, but because we want to help these individuals and these people that have struggled for a very long time. How do we do that at AFF? We have to, yes, we have science. I probably shouldn't say it that way. Yes, we have awesome history of forestry. We have all of these things. But really, at the end of the day, what we do at AFF and what all of us do is we've got to tap into the hearts and minds of people. We have to help people understand how they can be part of it, understand that there's hope, and understand and have tools and resources to take action. That's what's going to make that change. That's what's going to unlock the power of family lands, as well as a whole host of forestry solutions out there. So that sounds awesome. But today, 21% of our woodlands are owned by women. That just sounds really effing off to me, I just have to say, right? 21% of our woodlands owned by women? That just is so low. Now, interestingly enough, that's changed over the last 15 years. It used to be about 13%. So, wow, what's going on there? And it's not because women aren't interested in owning and managing woodlands. Come on, let's put that away, people. Like, if someone tells me that again, I'll just lose it. And it's not because women aren't working in the woods alongside their brothers and their fathers and their sons. It's not at all that. It's because we're experiencing history, right? It wasn't that long ago that women couldn't actually take out a loan to buy a piece of woods or invest in their woods without a man co-signing, right? Like, imagine like how far we've come from that. Holy cow. So we're now seeing women starting to really have the legal abilities to own and care for land, right? Women are starting to come into that generation. And we've got to create ways and spaces for women woodland owners to really be their true and best selves, right? We're not going to do it just by staying in this room. We've got to figure out ways to engage the community around us if we're going to succeed on this. It's going to mean we've got to support women like Susan Benedict. Susan's a third-generation family forest owner in Pennsylvania. Her woods are kind of at the headwaters of the Chesapeake Bay, really critical piece of forest. And I'm going to read a quote. When her dad, right before her dad passed, he told Susan, this is what he said. I'm not saying these words, these are someone else's words. Don't piss away the land. It's important to me. It's important to our family. And it's important to something bigger than us both. Now, I don't know about you, but if my dad said that, I'd be like, hell yeah, I got to do that. And I will do everything I possibly can to live up to my dad's expectations, right? These landowners and the women generation that are coming into this really see the power of forests, not only for their own families, but they understand the bigger impact that our forests can have on their communities. But Susan struggles. Susan struggles every day to figure out how's she going to pay the taxes? How's she going to invest in that culvert that just went out in her road? How is she going to create the habitat that she wants so that her kids and her grandkids want to enjoy the farm, right? And want to actually be part of it and be part of the next generation of stewards. And 85% of woodland owners in the US are 54 or older. So we're going to have a lot of Susans coming up. We're going to have a lot of Susans who are able, because legally they now can, we now can, own the land, and we have to figure out how do we create a community so that the Susans can be part of what we do, can be their true selves, can be their best selves as we're caring for our woods. And if we don't support women like Susan, we risk the land, we risk the people, we also risk that hopeful climate solution that we all are so excited about and need in the world around us. So just a little aside, we're always looking for people to join us, by the way. So if you're interested in coming to work for AFF or be in our governance or our board, we're always looking for people to help us create this change. Because we know we can't do it alone. That's one of the kind of fundamentals of AFF is we work with and through people and partners, right? We can't do any of this alone. So I just want to close with a challenge. And I think these challenges are kind of consistent with what Angela laid out, what Jackie laid out last night. So first, a challenge for me, I want to challenge myself and I want to challenge all of us as individuals. Do what makes you you. If that means painting your damn wall, paint your wall. If that means wearing your awesome shoes in the woods, wear your shoes in the woods. Be yourself, live your truth, right? That's the only way that you're gonna come to this world, you're gonna come to this forest sector and be able to give it your all. And I've seen that over and over again. If we don't create spaces for people to actually be their real and true self, we're not gonna get your all, and we need your all. We really need your all. And then the second challenge, and again, this goes to Angela's point around allyship and others, let's support each other. Let's support, and I loved, by the way, last night, the team is over there, we were yakking about something, and I said, let's take that one. And they were like, no, we need to support her. She's a woman. I'm like, you're damn right we do. Sorry about that, right? Like, we just had this instinct of like, no, we gotta support each other. And the biggest thing for me that I've learned about my trail, and it's just a little baby step along the trail, right? I'm just starting, is if we can't support each other and have people that are gonna help us get out of our heads, we're gonna continue to wallow, and we're not gonna be successful as the leaders that we need to be. So thank you. Thank you for allowing me to learn from all of you and be with all of you. I'm just so excited about the movement that we're gonna create. Thank you, Mia.
All right, good morning. I am just truly honored and inspired to be here in this room today. It's just amazing. Rita, thank you so much for sharing your story and being so transparent. I don't want to freak out any of the attorneys in the room, but it reminded me of a time when I was talking to someone about an opportunity that had come up, and they didn't ask me about the role. And I said, hey, why not? And they said, well, you're pregnant. And I was like, okay. But I looked at it as an opportunity to maybe educate that, hey, just because I'm pregnant doesn't mean I might not be interested. And I sat down and I had a conversation with that leader and said, in the future, have the conversations, right? Have the conversations, and things change too with people. Sometimes at work we talk about, well, this person isn't mobile. Well, maybe they're not mobile today, but they might be mobile tomorrow. And so always have those conversations. So before we get started, I am going to take Commissioner Stroman's cue, and I'm taking a picture. I'm doing a pano because it's so big. Here we go. Everybody smile, wave. Because this is amazing. Yeah, okay, got everybody. And then, just to impress my grown children, here, do a selfie. Wait a minute. All right, everybody, wave. Okay, and then this side. All right, wave. Awesome. Okay, that's good. So I can't express what it feels like to be here today at this place in our industry, to be among so many powerful and inspiring women and some men. We see you out there. Thank you for being part of this. I know men have probably been really important parts of all of our journeys. And so thank you for being here today. Some people might not know this, but Frederick Weyerhaeuser actually lived in St. Paul, Minnesota in 1891. And he lived right next door to a railroad tycoon named James Hill. And together they bought 900,000 acres of timberlands in Tacoma, Washington. I happen to be born in Tacoma, Washington. And that started Weyerhaeuser Timber Company back in 1891, $6 an acre. So that was $5.4 million. And for any of you finance geeks out there, that would be a 200 million, actually 195 million, 100 deal today. And mind-boggling for me on the size of that deal. It was a historic deal for Weyerhaeuser, and that's what really started the company. So as you can see from this picture here, I actually grew up in the forest products industry. That's my dad's Kenworth truck. We called it Big Blue. I'm the littlest one there with my siblings. Aren't they cool with those glasses? My sister would kill me if she knew I had showed that picture. So my dad was an independent log truck driver, and we spent many Saturdays down working on that truck, doing maintenance. I thought I was a big help. I'm sure I was not a big help. I spent a lot of time watching. I loved when we used to go through the truck wash. That was amazing. My favorite part was he'd take us to Dairy Queen after. I still love soft serve. So I really fondly remember those times. I remember spending time with him in the truck. I remember how hard that work was. When I was in high school, he let me go with him once or twice. The only rule was the CB radio had to be off at all times. But you get up at 3 a.m. and you get your first load at 4, and it's a long day and it's hard work. But he taught me a really important work ethic. On the weekends, we would go for rides in our Buick station wagon. You can see it there, that nice cream Buick station wagon. And Dad would take us up these really steep Pacific Northwest logging roads that absolutely terrified my mother. But the view at the end was always worth it. So I have a lot of fond memories of being out on those roads. So way back then, I never imagined that I would be part of this industry. I have been with Weyerhaeuser for 41 years now. I tell people that I was born there. I used to be 10, but now I was born there. And it's seriously, it's hard to believe. 4 decades of just watching and being part of the dramatic changes in this industry has been amazing. And so obviously forestry has always been part of not only my work and my lifetime, but my family's, and absolutely love it. I would not trade it for a thing. My dad passed away about 4 years ago. And I say he shared in my love of the industry, but really I shared in his love of the industry and the forest and being outdoors. And he was so proud of me, but not just me. He was really proud of this industry and how far it has come. And every time I went out to one of our sites or our forest, I always took videos back. And he was 94 when he passed away. He'd want to see every video. He'd want to know about the equipment. He always talked about the safety at Weyerhaeuser when he used to have to deliver logs to a Weyerhaeuser site. So it meant a lot to share that with my dad and to share the stories and how eager he was to learn what was going on. So I think back to my first days back in 1981. And I think, like many of you, for many times and many years, you're the only woman in the room. And, I soaked up every opportunity I had to sit at that table, to contribute at that table. And also to start changing the dynamics around that table and start to provide opportunities for many others. And I think that's how we can really make a difference. And I know I was fortunate. I had some really great mentors. A lot of them were men, as I mentioned, and I had a few women mentors as well. Yet through all of that, there has been this very simple and stubborn truth. And that's why we're here today, and I think we all know it. There's just not enough women in leadership positions in this industry. And it doesn't matter the size of the organization, it doesn't matter if it's a company or an institution or if it's private or if it's public, there are just not enough women. And we need to change that. We need more women at the table. We need more women at all of the tables, helping support and lift each other up, to Rita's point, right? Why do we not do that sometimes? Why do we have a tendency to sometimes pull women down? We need to be there to support each other and lift each other up. And our voices need to be heard. They need to be heard on all of the decisions that are affecting our sector and the workplaces and the forests that we manage and that we care for. So I know, I've been in the industry 40 years. I know that we cannot expect major change overnight, but this is a critical moment for us, and I think we're ready for it. I think we are ready to seize the energy that's in this room, the energy from our colleagues who are virtually in this room, and the countless number of other colleagues across the country and across the world. This is the time to harness that. And we need this moment because, as Rita said, the world is changing very rapidly right now. We're confronted with climate change that Rita spoke about. We are confronted with increased urbanization, with economic inequality and alienation, and struggling rural communities where we have a lot of operations. Yet, for the most part, we're still approaching many of those problems using the same methods and ways that we've done for the past decade and even century at sometimes. So we need new ways to think. We need diverse ways to think. And we need broad-scale collaboration and innovation like we've never seen before. You know, on an even higher level, we are also talking about forests and forest products, which are essential resources for countless numbers of people across the world. And so our sector needs to be fully and truly sustainable. We need to continue adapting and evolving in order to continue earning the trust of all of our stakeholders and all of our communities. And that single thing is our right and our license to operate. So it is essential that we do that. You know, I can tell you at Weyerhaeuser, just the scale of a single company, what we've seen is when you have more people around the table, when you have diverse voices around that table, you end up with much better solutions. You get better outcomes, you have more innovation, you have more pride and progress and satisfaction from everyone who's involved and around the table. And we recognize how important it is to address the vital question of access to those tables. Access is so important. And as Rita said, breaking down those barriers, seeing the barriers, and then breaking down those barriers and the injustices that come with some of those barriers so that people's voices are heard, so they have a comfortable and welcome seat at the table, and that they are empowered to make decisions that we're talking about at that table. And when you think about it, the stakes are just way too high to leave anyone out of conversations. And we know that we can't do this alone. Our ultimate success is going to depend on how well we can come together and collaborate with public and private groups, manufacturers of different sizes, conservation groups, everyone who's working for and with forests. So we're all in this together. And I consider it a tremendous honor, and I consider it a huge responsibility to be part of the work of making sure that we'll have sustainable forests forever, forests of all kinds, for all purposes, and for all people. So when I first learned about the Women's Forest Congress from Ara Erickson, who many people know, I knew this was special. I knew this was going to be unique. And I knew with the right people in the room and in the virtual room, and that's what we have right now, the right people, I knew with that and the right support, we're going to make a difference. We are going to make a difference. So the earlier American Forest Congress, which I want to mention, Frederick Weyerhaeuser's son spoke at the 1905 American Forest Congress. That's what this event is built on. And when you think back to what they did, they chartered new directions for forest management. They helped shape key policies, key investments, and they also showed collaboration, especially across traditionally opposing views of forest management and use is challenging, but they also showed why it is so critically important. And that is exactly why we're here together today. And I know we can build on that and grow from those experiences. I think there's going to be a lot of exciting and hard work taking place over the next couple of days, and Weyerhaeuser is thrilled to be part of it. We have been proud to support the Women's Congress from the start. We have more than 35 women here today, which is amazing. I also want to point out we have 2 babies. Those are future Weyerhaeuser employees. We have one grandmother who's here. Did I miss anyone? And you know, I was thinking about that, and that is incredible. Last night after dinner, I walked into the bar and there were a group of people sitting there, and there was someone on their phone. And I said, "Oh, what are you doing?" "Oh, one of the babies needs diapers, so I'm doing Instacart. Anybody need anything?" And you know, aside from tech, and she said, "Well, it'll be here in like an hour." Aside from the technology, which is so cool that you can Instacart anything you want, I thought, wow, that wouldn't have happened in 1981, or when my 26-year-old was 1. Probably wouldn't even talk about my 1-year-old back then. And I thought, wow, that's a support system. That is what this is about, supporting women in whatever it is. How cool is it to have a grandmother and 2 babies here on this trip? I think it's amazing. So that said, as a company and a workforce, we are committed to listening and engaging and help execute on the resolutions and ideas that come out of this Congress. And we are going to put resources behind it. We're going to put people behind it. And we are going to make sure that we succeed in this mission. And so what I challenge each of you to do is bring open eyes and bring a critical way of thinking to the discussions that are going to happen over the next couple of days. And tomorrow, let's leave here with really clear, actionable resolutions that inspire not just us in the forest and forest products sector, but that inspire everyone who have an interest in forest and everyone with an interest in and responsibility to manage the most critical natural resource on the planet. So thank you everyone in this room for coming here, for committing to this critical work, and I can't wait to connect with you and be inspired from your stories as well. So thank you.
all I can say is, wow, inspirational. And so if you did not take notes, you definitely missed out, because I was jotting down some notes, and I definitely want to reiterate some of the comments that were made, because absolutely right now is the time. The time is now. And so these ladies are truly blazing a trail, not only for now, but also in the future. And so a few things that I jotted down, which is so important: allyship, ensuring that you have people that are there to support you, and ensuring that you are there also supporting others. Having champions, networking, mind over matter. And many times your mind can play many tricks on you, but know when you are in these roles, and even when you're trying to get into these roles, it takes time, it takes courage. And I tell folks, I live one day at a time. And so you have to understand that it takes time to build up that courage to get to where you are, and understanding that when you're in those roles, you're supposed to be in those roles. Also, be your authentic self. Own who you are and thrive in it. Mentorship. And last but not least, removing barriers. And I tell folks, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu, and it doesn't feel good to be on the menu. And so it's so important for us to get to those tables. And sometimes you may have to pull up your own chair, and that's okay. But understanding again that you're meant to be at those tables. Ladies, thank you so much for being vulnerable with us. It is important for us to share our stories, to identify the similarities and differences, and to know that we are not alone in our journeys. Everyone's journey will be different, and we can lean into one another for support. The goal is for you to walk away from the Congress inspired, empowered, and building a network. We can do nothing alone. We must learn from others and be willing to teach others the ropes. We are impactful, ladies, and in being impactful, we must be intentional. So Rita, Meryl, and Angela, thank you so much for being here, and we appreciate your comments. Thank you.